Abel Magwitch, the escaped convict whom Pip helps as a child and later discovers to be his mysterious benefactor, is one of the most complex and compelling characters in Charles Dickens's Great Expectations. At first appearing as a frightening figure, Magwitch ultimately becomes a symbol of transformation, gratitude, and the flawed justice system. Through Magwitch, Dickens explores key themes such as class prejudice, redemption, and human dignity, challenging Victorian assumptions about morality and respectability. Role in the narrative. Magwitch's presence bookends Great Expectations, shaping both the plot and Pip's emotional and moral development. He first appears in the marshes as a desperate and terrifying convict who threatens young Pip into stealing food and a file. This encounter leaves a profound psychological imprint on Pip, instilling feelings of fear, guilt, and a sense of obligation. For many chapters, Magwitch disappears from the narrative, and Pip's life moves in a different direction. He is introduced to Miss Havisham and Estella, moves to London, and lives under the assumption that he is being groomed for a gentlemanly life through Miss Havisham's favor. However, the actual turning point comes when Magwitch reappears in Pip's London apartment, revealing himself as Pip's mysterious benefactor. The revelation is a shock to Pip, who feels horror and shame upon learning that his fortune comes from a criminal, not a noble source. This moment subverts Pip's assumptions about class and morality, forcing him to re-evaluate his values. Rather than rejecting Magwitch, Pip ultimately embraces him, caring for him during his final days and demonstrating the emotional and moral growth that defines Pip's character arc. Symbolic significance. Magwitch is a richly symbolic character, embodying Dickens's criticism of Victorian society's views on class, criminality, and human worth. Magwitch symbolizes the misjudged and marginalized individual. Branded as a criminal and treated as a social outcast, he is nonetheless more generous, loyal, and moral than many of the respectable gentlemen in the novel. Characters like Compeyson, Magwitch's co-conspirator, and Estella's father, who comes from a higher class and presents a refined appearance, are in fact more corrupt and dangerous. Magwitch is also a symbol of the failures of the legal system. Despite being coerced into crime and betrayed by Compeyson, Magwitch receives a much harsher sentence. Dickens uses this to highlight how Victorian justice favored the wealthy and punished the poor more severely. The courts judged Magwitch not only for his actions but also for his class and appearance. This injustice lies at the heart of Magwitch's bitterness and fuels his desire to change the life of a poor boy like Pip. Perhaps most importantly, Magwitch represents the theme of redemption. After escaping to Australia and working hard to build a fortune, he devotes his life to secretly enriching Pip. His dream is not revenge but reparation and legacy, to make Pip a gentleman in the way he was never allowed to become one. In this sense, Magwitch transforms from a figure of fear into a figure of generosity and sacrifice. His story challenges the idea that people are irredeemable or fixed in their moral status. The evolving relationship between Pip and Magwitch is pivotal to the novel's emotional and moral fabric. Initially, Pip is terrified of Magwitch, and later repulsed by the idea that a criminal funds his rise in society. But as Pip learns more about Magwitch's history, his harsh upbringing, betrayal by Compeyson, and unwavering loyalty, his feelings shift from disgust to compassion and respect. This relationship ultimately becomes one of mutual redemption. Magwitch gains human dignity and affection through Pip's care and recognition, while Pip is humbled and morally elevated through his service to the man he once looked down upon. Dickens utilizes this relationship to suggest that true gentility is rooted in empathy, rather than status. Broader thematic implications. Magwitch's character interrogates the social boundaries of Victorian England. As a working-class convict, he is considered dangerous and inferior by default. But Dickens asks, what makes a person gentlemanly? Is it money? Birth? Education? Through Magwitch's honest labor and emotional generosity, Dickens suggests that character rather than class defines a person's actual value. Moreover, Magwitch's decision to make Pip a gentleman shows how class aspiration functions across society. While Pip longs to rise above his humble origins, Magwitch seeks to bestow status upon Pip as a form of vicarious redemption. In both cases, Dickens critiques the notion that social advancement is equivalent to moral improvement. A profound sense of gratitude drives Magwitch's life after escaping Britain. His desire to repay Pip for the kindness he received in his childhood, a small act of mercy with lasting consequences, is profound. Dickens portrays this gratitude not as a burden, but as a redemptive force that lends meaning to Magwitch's life. This focus on emotional debts and moral repayment stands in contrast to the cold legal debts and punishments imposed by society. Magwitch spends most of his adult life in exile, both literally in Australia and emotionally as a social outcast. His longing to return to England, even at significant personal risk, reflects a deep human need for belonging, recognition, and connection. That he ultimately dies not in disgrace, but in the presence of someone who cares for him, underscores the idea that dignity and human worth are not dictated by society, but affirmed through relationships. Magwitch's final moments are among the most moving in the novel. As he lies dying in prison, Pip tells him that his daughter Estella is alive, beautiful, and loved. Although Magwitch never knew her, the knowledge that she lives and has value offers him peace. This moment completes his arc from violent outcast to humanized father figure, and it highlights the importance of compassion and emotional reconciliation. In death, Magwitch becomes a symbol not of crime or punishment, but of the potential for change and the power of love and gratitude. Dickens grants him a kind of quiet redemption, illustrating that even those society rejects most harshly are capable of humanity and grace. Conclusion. Abel Magwitch is one of Charles Dickens's most powerful creations, a man who defies easy categorization and embodies the core themes of Great Expectations. Through his transformation from convict to benefactor, from outcast to beloved figure, Magwitch challenges the Victorian ideals of class, morality, and justice. His relationship with Pip drives the narrative's emotional growth and affirms Dickens's central belief that dignity and worth come not from status, but from the content of one's character.